This is the last sermon in this series. It's really what I was hoping for, okay? Maybe not, okay? Either way it is. And we've been going through all of the things that hinder us from having a real life Hallmark movie family, right? And I know we all strive for that. We all want to be that. We all want to wear scarves. Who wears a scarf in a picture, really? All right, we all want to do that. We want our family. We want at least to people to think that our family is like that, right? But really what happens is the 312 snapshots it took before they got to this one is what real life for us looks like, right? And all of the things we talked about, all of the things that keep us from that. But today I'm going to talk about what I think is the most important thing that we have to think of. Yep, that we have to think of. Right, and it's simply this. How many of you heard of a gentleman called the Amazing Randy? You ever heard of the Amazing Randy? He was a stage magician. He was a mentalist, an escape artist. Kind of think of Houdini. He once escaped from a block of ice. He once escaped from a straitjacket while hanging upside down over Niagara Falls. He once broke a record. I still need to know if this is really right? But for staying underwater in an airtight coffin for close to 2 hours, all right? That I don't understand that one. But the real reason that I bring up the Amazing Randy is that his biography, the guy that was writing his biography, revealed that when this guy was performing as a mentalist on stage, he would get up every morning and take a note out of his wallet, and he would tear it up. He would destroy that note. He would write a new one and put it back in his wallet. Every day of his life that he would do this, take it out, rip it up, write a new one, put it back in his wallet. And here's what the note said. He says, "I am James Randy. This is November the 9th, 2025. And today will be the day that I die." That way, if he actually died on that day, somebody would find the note, believe that he had accurately predicted the day of his death, and his legend would live on. Every day he did that. Hey, that's a lot of trouble to guarantee that your legacy, when you're not around to enjoy it, lives on. What if we all had a sheet of paper in our wallet today? What if they all said something like, "I am Chris Shuford. Today is November the 9th, 2025, and I know that this day will be the day that I die." How would you spend your day? What would you do? What would you say? How are you spending your days now? What are they going to say about you? What is your legacy? What are we doing? Right? Why? We've got to have this understanding in our lives, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, right? Either whether you have a family or not, right? We've got to understand what is our legacy? What is our legacy? What are we doing? Right? And what I want us to understand today is that God can take a no person, you know those people, that no matter what situation, no matter what it is, right, the answer is no. Right? They're negative. The way they live their lives is a particular way, right? But God can take no people and turn them into people who say yes. I've seen that happen many times. When you had children, those little born sinners that you brought into this world, Right? When they were young and learning, their first word is what? No. Now, if you were lucky and no wasn't their first word, their first phrase was stop it. No, stop it. My kids were that way. They didn't even understand, right, the rationale behind no, behind stop it. But that is the innate way that we start. Right? And then I review that and I look back at the stage of life that I am in now as a dad who has children, grown children at this point, right, that are getting ready literally in the next 2 years that they will leave my house. Right? The past 2.5 months, both of my children have gotten engaged. Shannon and I were sitting in the living room just a few months ago, and I'm like, honey, man, life seemed to have sped up really, really quick. Right? Really fast, really quick. And then you start to think back, what I wouldn't do for a no, what I wouldn't give for a stop it, one more time. But on the other side of that is this excitement in my heart that what's it going to look like to let them, to watch them grow, for them to go and develop, right? I can't wait as a father. I can't wait in 10 years. I can't wait for my son to look back on this period of his life and in 10 years, in 20 years, say I had to make some big decisions in my life. I was really scared. There was these moments in my life that I was scared to death. I didn't know what was going to happen. Right? I was really sad sometimes in those periods of life, but I know what God has called me to do, and I said yes. I know the direction. I know who orders my steps. And maybe I don't know all the situations that are going to happen. I don't know what to prepare for. I don't know if I'm ready to be married. I don't know if I'm ready to be a father, but I know who ordered my steps, and through that, I'm going to look to him, and I'm going to say yes every time. Through that, gives me excitement. It's going to give me joy. It's going to give me joy. I told you before that as much as I grew up playing sports and loving sports, I loved playing. I loved the camaraderie. I loved the competition. I loved all of that, right? But it was through watching my children play that I had even more joy in what they did and how they did it and what they were doing. I can't wait to see and look at the legacy that God is already letting me build through my yes. And what that means for my children. And you see, the truth is that all of us want to leave a legacy. All of us in the world say, I want to know my purpose. I want to be important. I want to have influence. I want to make a difference in this world. When I'm gone, I'd like people to say, yes, this person had an impact on my life. We all want that. The world's a better place. I'm better because of this person, right? We are different because of this person. This is what we desire. I just want to remind you today, as we wrap this up, and we're going to look at this legacy that we dream of leaving, but it all starts with a yes. I told you there's two words that do not go together in the English language, and they are no and Lord. No and Lord. They never go together. Right? And so we're going to look in Genesis chapter 12 today at what that yes looks like. Right? We're going to talk about a challenge that was made to a man named Abram. You may know him as Abraham. And we're going to look at Genesis chapter 12 and how the impact of this man who said yes over and over again has on us today. Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. It says, the Lord had said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. Stop there. I want you to know, and I want you to understand, right, that this decision will cost Abram. He'll have to give up all comfort. This is where I grew up, God. These are my people. This is my home, God. And chapter 13 goes on and would say that he was rich in livestock. This guy has money. Abram was loaded. People would walk past Abram's estate back then and say, man, look at his cattle. Look at all that he has. And he had to walk away. He had to sacrifice everything to say yes. And he could take some of the cattle with him for sure. He could do that. But it won't matter because the land is what keeps the cattle alive. So he could do that for a short period, right? You couldn't leave at that time with your credit card. You couldn't leave that time and use Apple Pay. It didn't work like that. Right? You would have to, right? But if you didn't have the land, it's not even worth it. He has to give up everything. Yeah, it's going to cost him. It's going to cost him a lot. God doesn't tell him where he's taking him. He doesn't even tell him where he's going. Right? Let's be honest today. Have you ever felt like God was saying to you, I want you to do this, I want you to do that? And you say to yourself, how's that going to happen? I don't see a path to any of that. Right? And he replies, you say yes. You say yes. Chris, I need you to say yes, and you'll get the information based on the need to know. But first, you say yes. You say yes. Well, I've learned after attending church for a long time and living for a while is that we're thankful. We should be thankful that God doesn't tell us what's going to happen. You believe that? Because this dude would jack something up if he told me that. I'm going to get it off the rails at some point. I'm going to try to take control of the situation because I know how I feel. I know what my limitations are. I know what my comfort zone is. All right, when we start walking according to the plans that he has for us, because if we could see what we're going to get into later, you probably wouldn't say yes. Let's be honest. That's where we're going, God? I'm good. I'm good. And we would change the situation. Right? But Abram here has to say yes, and he has no idea what's going to happen. I'm going to make you a promise. I'm not going to tell you where we're going, Abram. But let me make you some promises, though, along the way. And he says this in verse 2, that I will make you, Abram, into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Listen, Abram, I'm giving you the opportunity to leave a legacy, right? A legacy that you've always dreamed of. And it's based on this next verse. These next 3 words that are going to change Abram's life and let him leave a legacy that would endure to this day. And those 3 words in verse 4 says, so Abram went. So Abram went. Mom and Dad, where are you going? Where are you going? Who you taking with you? Do you know where you're going? Right? Has God said something to you, told you, right, of something that you need to step into? So Abram went. He said yes. His legacy was built on that, the fact that he went. Right? And what a legacy it is. Listen, understand this. He will found the nation of Israel. And through this nation, God brings Jesus into the world, who dies on a cross. He pays the price for our sins. He gives each of us the opportunity to be forgiven of those sins, to go to heaven forever, to change the world for all humans for eternity, and talking about a legacy. Listen, it's 4,000 years later, and there's somebody this weekend in a Sunday school class singing Father Abraham. After all this time, the question that I want to ask you today is God calling you to do something? And if you're a parent, if you're a grandparent, if you're a family member, God has called you to leave a legacy in your family. Do you understand, grandparents, mom and dad, do you understand the impact that you have? I don't know, we think about it. Right? Good or bad, you have a significant impact on your children, your children's children, nephews, nieces. And I think so many times we are so lackadaisical about that we just go through life, da-da-da, got to meet this schedule, I got to get this done, right? My son's got to go here, my daughter's got to go there, right? We got to look like this on social media, we've got to do all those things, and in the meantime, your legacy, what is being passed on to the next generation, is garbage. Right? We've got to think about this. Parents, God's called you to something. He has entrusted you, right, with those children. You know it in your heart, but you keep negotiating with God. Right? It can be that no one else knows. Maybe you've talked to a few people about something that God's asked you to do. Right? You know how excited he is about the local church. He was so excited about the local church that when he was talking to some of his best dudes, man, he said this thing is going to be a game changer, right? He actually said the gates of hell will not stand against it. But yet, I want you to understand, right, that all of that is built up off of this family unit. You may say, well, he called me to give. I negotiated. He called me to serve, and I put it off. He called me to start a group because he knows I can help somebody. He called me to join a group because he knows I need someone to help me right now. He called me to get more involved. He called me to share my faith. He called me to invite somebody to church. He called me to serve someone at my school, my office, my neighborhood, my family. He called me to forgive this person, and it hurts just to think about that. He called me to continue in this relationship. He called me to remove myself from this relationship. He called me to trust him with my career and to take a leap of faith. He called me and he trusted me and all that is within me. What is God calling you to today? Parents, I ask you specifically, what's he calling you? What kind of legacy do you think you're leaving? Right? Because the legacy you dream of leaving behind will begin and will always begin with your yes. But Abram went. Because I know that it's almost every time, right, he's going to call you to this. you don't know how it's going to go. Maybe you've heard my story a little bit. I'll share it with you briefly. But I went to the other school in Gaston County that we don't speak of, and I was there, and it was my senior year, and I played baseball and everything, and I was average at best. And we go through the season, and it's wrapping up, and I had all intentions of going to UNC Asheville and going to college there is probably where I would have ended up. We're playing a baseball game in Shelby, and unbeknownst to me that our baseball coach had invited the Gardner-Webb University baseball coach to that game, and it just so happened that during that game, it was stupid how I played. The only home run I hit in college. I mean, it was just crazy, and just all around perfect game that I played. Totally not the norm, right? So after that game, I talked to Coach Miller, the head coach at Gardner-Webb. Things would progress, and he invited me to come and play at Gardner-Webb. Right? Seemed uneventful at the time. Didn't think anything about it. So I go and we start school, and everything's going good, right? And I'm there. I've been there a couple of years and really finding my way at Gardner-Webb. And in my junior year, they invite me to be part of the admissions welcome team to serve on Saturdays as new students would come to the campus, and we would take them around and show them around and everything. And during that process, I met this smoking hot girl, right? She had I can tell you right now, she had on a green dress. She had a crazy tan, and she had this little mock doily thing that was around her neck on the green dress that her mama made her. I can picture her right now, right there on the front of the Dover Campus Center at Gardner-Webb University. Right? So through that, right, and through buddies that I met on the baseball team, okay, knew her, went to school with her, and through that, we started dating. Right? So that goes on, and for 2 years, I graduate Gardner-Webb. I propose. She said yes. Starts with a yes. Hear me? She said yes. Right? And so she gets through school. We want to look, and we want to start finding a church that we want to attend to kind of make our own. And so through that process, we come to Hickory Grove. 30 years ago, right? And again, she said yes right here at this spot. Why do I tell you that? Why do I tell you that? Because, right, I want you to understand that though you think that you are in control, right, that God has a way, right, of ordering your steps. Okay, that he has a way. Listen, I was a much better baseball player on that Friday night in Shelby than I was the previous 3 or 4 years. Why? Because God had a plan for that. Right? That he would put Coach Miller in my life. That he would put these dudes that I would meet through baseball in my life. Right? To formulate a plan that I would meet my wife. Right? And then we would come to here, to Hickory Grove, right, where we would meet lifelong friends, of which one of those lifelong friends' brother was at a different church. Right, so Shannon and I go off to Greenville. We come back. I'm looking for a place to go and serve, right? And I noticed through this friend that I've made at Hickory Grove, right, they're at this place and they got a job opening, and I apply for that job and I get it. And during that job at Tuckasegee and Mount Holly, it would grow me. It would grow me in ministry that would prepare me to come here. At the time, I was clueless to any and all of that, right? But looking back in retrospect, I can see God's hand moving all the time. And it started with a crazy Friday night in high school. You got to say yes. Right? I promise you, I don't know what he's calling you to do. Right? So number one, Abraham said yes. You don't know how it's going to go, but I do know one thing. Our legacies begin with a yes. What is God calling you today? Will you say yes? Abraham left a legacy that changed the world. Why? Because he said yes. And secondly, not only did he say yes, he said yes again and again and again. Abraham kept saying yes. Look what happens after he says this, after he says yes. He walks away from the estate, the cattle, the luxury, the plenty of food, right? They were very, very comfortable. But he said yes, and then he left. And look what it says in Genesis 12, verse 8. It says, from there he went on toward the hills east of Bethel and pitched a tent. Listen, you need to understand something about your pastor. He's a little extra. Okay? Do you know how stupid I think tent camping is? Why am I going to lie on the floor when I pay a mortgage? Right? Well, I sleep outside when there's air conditioning at home. There's no need for all that. All kinds of people, right, work there to take care of this kind of estate, to take care of his livestock, and he goes from a mansion to a tent. It's easy to say yes to God when the next step's a higher salary. It's easy to say yes to God when the next step is a little more luxurious. It's easy to say yes when asked if you want a promotion. Right? It's easy, parents, to say yes when your kids are killing it in school, when they're killing it on the ball field. Right? But it's a little bit harder when they're chasing trouble. Right? And what is happening here with Abraham, Abraham had a divine downgrade. A divine downgrade is what we see. I'm in a tent, Lord. I was really comfortable before you told me what to do. And it gets worse. And it says that from there he went on toward the hills east of Bethel, and he pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. My situation is not perfect, God, right? But I have decided to spend time with you today. Because he's the one who called me. You called me, God. So I'm going to build an altar. I'm going to worship you. I'm going to lay down at your throne. I'm going to stop worrying and focusing on my problems and how my back hurt because I'm laying on the floor in a tent. And I'm going to start focusing on you, my provider, the one who called me. Because I know, God, that if you've called me to this, that you're going to take care of me through it. In verse 9, then Abram set out and continued toward the Negev. Now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while because the famine was severe. Wait, God. I'm just a guy that said yes. And you said you had a plan for me, Lord. I reduced my standard of living like crazy. Now I'm starving. And the Bible says severe. He wanted to make sure that we understood that. Not just a famine, a severe famine. Which means that Abraham and everything that he loves, his wife Sarah, his family, could literally starve. You read this stuff so fast, church, because right, we're on the other side of it. We know the story, right? But he didn't. Wait, God, what? I don't understand you. Maybe I misheard you when you were telling me to go. Have you stopped paying attention, God? Am I making a mistake along the way? Did I do something to you, God? And now, right, are you calling this off? Is the calling in my life, is it off? Are we done? No. Listen, because Scripture says that the call he has on your life is irrevocable. Right, but here's what we feel. We say, wait, I said yes. I said yes, God, and I look around, and nothing works. Nothing's working in my benefit. All I did was say yes, and now my family, not just me, my family's in danger of starving. Do you not care about me, God? Don't you think he thought about coming home? Don't you think he thought about, hey, this isn't worth it? But he didn't. He kept saying yes. He kept saying yes. He kept saying yes. Right? It goes beyond just going from the mansion to the tent. It goes beyond all of that when you can't eat, when you can't provide for your family, when the most basic fundamental things that God, especially for us guys, that has wired us to take care of our family and do those things, and I can't do it. And I've said yes, and you've called me to do this. This doesn't make sense. What I want you to understand today, that your legacy, it doesn't have to make sense to you. It doesn't have to make sense to you. Right? I've never read a Bible story in Scripture, even with one of the heroes of faith that said, okay, Lord, that's a little crazy. Right? And you haven't given me all the details, and I just say yes. I've never read a single story where they said yes and chaos didn't break out. Not a single one. Right? I think that's why he kind of slipped this next verse into Hebrews. He's talking about all these men and women of faith, and it's in Hebrews 11, verse 6. And it says, and without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. Listen, without faith, it's impossible to walk according to your calling. Right? And God says, listen, you're a broken people in a broken world. What I'm calling you to do is going to be problematic. There's going to be ups and downs. There'll be times when you say to yourself that I really think I am in the valley of the shadow of death. I'm not going to take you around it. I'm going to accompany you through it. You won't stay in the valley. I'll be there with you, but when I call you, you better expect problems. But God, I thought you said that, Lord, and now look, I thought you said only date a certain type of person, and I live pure and I'm still single. Thought you said to take this other job and take a risk. Look at what my family's going through because of that. Thought you said yes, and I get this diagnosis. I thought you said to give, and I was faithful, and we're tithing, and now we have all these financial problems. I thought you told me to do this, right? And what I want you to understand is that if that's you, you are in good company. God asked Noah to build an ark. He said yes. Every person in his life laughed at him, looked down on him. Right? You don't think there wasn't a day where he was building that ark and it never rained before when he says, thank you very much for this one, Lord. Still don't know why he let them cats back on, but it'll be a question in heaven. Moses was asked to risk his life to go to the most powerful man on the planet and demand that he free the whole nation of Israel from 400 years of slavery. Demand him and risk your life. And he goes, and the first 9 times that he goes, he's rejected. Right? You don't think he felt ridiculous? Thanks, God. You don't think by turn 7 that he's done, that he's fed up? It's like, this makes no sense, God. And he kept saying yes. We read the story. We know that there were 10 plagues, but Moses didn't. All he knows is that this is the 9th time I've tried to listen, and God doesn't seem to care. One day, Jesus told his disciples to get on a boat and go to the other side of the lake. And the biggest storm you've ever seen blows up. And they're like, wait, John to Peter, it just wasn't me that heard him tell us to do this, right? No, this is what he said. He told us to go and then go on the other side, and this huge storm comes up. Do you not think, right, that they were questioning the calling? Right, Abraham's doing the same thing. Why would he tell us to do something that puts our lives at risk? Right? Abraham saying, why would you call me? I don't even know if we have food this week. Why would you call me to find a nation? I don't even have a child. How am I going to start a nation and I ain't got no kids, God? Now it's been 25 years since that promise. Look, ain't no kids. What are we doing? We're old, God. I'm 100. Poor Sarah over here, my wife, she's coming up on 100 and she's infertile. How are we supposed to sit in this, God? You know what all these stories have in common? They kept saying yes. They didn't go home. They didn't stop. They refused to give up. And in God, in His perfect and in His miraculous timing, He performed incredible miracles. It allowed each of them to leave a legacy that's allowed them to change the course of things in this world. And if every one of them, if we could put them on stools right here, right, just right here on this stage, and we had a Q&A with each and every one of these statues of faith here in Scripture, they would beg you, Hickory Grove, don't you dare give up. Don't you dare stop. Right? Don't you dare stop saying yes, that He's called you. He has a plan. Stay there. Keep saying yes. Keep saying yes. It matters. Right? And one day you'll be glad you did. God says it like this in Galatians 6:9. Let us not become weary in doing good. For at the proper time, God's time, not my time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. I know it's getting really trying and hard to trust me when people don't understand that if you keep saying yes at the right time, you'll reap a harvest. If you don't give up, that's His promise. I want you to understand, parents in this room, you will reap a harvest. You will reap a harvest. I told you before, I've told my kids, don't bring up no jacked up grandkids into my house. Don't behave, don't listen. Right? We're going to reap it. But don't you dare stop trusting. Don't you dare stop believing. Don't you dare stop praying. Don't you dare give up faith. One day you'll be glad you did. Number 3, Abraham walked in humility. He walked in humility. I want to challenge some of you. Today you're about to say to yourself, I know what God's calling me to do. I'm trying to figure it out if I'm going to take this step of faith or not. I want to challenge you to decide in advance before you take the first step. Or for some of you, before you take the next step. To decide in advance about those, that you have to be humble. This is something that I am passionate about. This is something that I lean on very heavily in my life and in my walk with Christ. Outside of that core faith, humility is probably the second one that I put right below it. Why? Because it shapes everything else that I do. It shapes every decision that I make. It shapes every situation that I put myself into. How is that? You see, if you don't walk in humility, you won't say yes to begin with. Right? If you don't walk in humility, you're never going to get to the yes. Right? Pride's going to come on autopilot if we're not careful. Right? And God's going to call you to something. Right? God's going to call you to give, and pride's going to say, I don't give. I earn this money. I save money. I have a plan for the future, man. I always try to follow the Joneses. I don't give. I don't serve. I don't have time for that. I'm going to come and consume a little. You can have me for an hour. but don't go crazy, preacher man. Pride says, I don't fit into a group. I don't have time. I don't need it. Without humility, we will never say yes to begin with. And we certainly won't continue to say yes when things get tough. Pride will skyrocket and say, I knew I was right. I knew it was crazy. I knew I couldn't trust God. I'm leaving. I'm going home. Got to walk in humility. Parents, maybe some of you need to walk in humility. Maybe you need to take a step back, right, and ask yourself, right, before we focus on our children and correcting them, we should put half of that effort into correcting ourselves and correcting our hearts. Some of you need to take a step back from your children and focus on your marriage. You're not going to leave the legacy that God's called you to, because, right, your marriage is sideways. Hey, I'll tell you the truth. Y'all may look at me like I'm crazy. I wouldn't even date anybody that came from a divorced family. That's getting pretty hard these days. Right? But I knew, right? Shannon knew what a functioning family was, right? A functioning marriage was. Right? It was just a decision that I made. Then I read 1 Peter 5, and just a heads up, I think we may do a series in 2026 on 1 and 2 Peter, but 1 Peter 5:6 says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time." He says, I'm going to raise you up. Abraham said yes. He continued to say yes, and he walked in humility. Parents, say yes, and then continue to say yes. And then walk in humility. Every day of your life. Right? You say, Chris, well, I blew it. I've already messed up. That's okay. That's okay from this day forward. Right? Because, listen, your children are going to stand on your shoulders and your grandkids on their shoulders. And so, and go, and go. It matters. It matters here. It matters here at Hickory Grove. Listen, I've never done this. And I apologize. I apologize. It's going to make sense here in a second. Right? Because listen, you need to understand just here at Hickory Grove, right? There's shoulders on which we stand on. Right? Most of you, many of you are here, right? And you've only been here probably less than 3 years. Okay? Because God's been so faithful in growing. But listen, you need to understand that you stand on shoulders of those who said yes, who didn't give up. Many of you don't know, right? But probably between 4 and 8 years ago, at least on 2 occasions, right, a larger church came into Hickory Grove and said, hey, listen, we want to merge. We want to merge with you. Okay, it's a large church in Gastonia said, hey, we want to come. We want you to be our campus on this side of the county. Right? And it was a big to-do, and it was a lot of things. Right? But looking back now, those people said yes. Right? They said, hey, we don't believe that God's done with Hickory Grove. We don't believe that he's done using this body, right, to reach this county. And I look at it, and I'm Chip and Leanne Smith, Jerry and Melanie Mills, Brian and Brittany Bradshaw, Mark and Terry Martin, Joy Van Vink, Gila Sheila Brown, Dennis Pam Heim, Les Kim Frady, Steve and Sandy Hombuyer, Steph and Danny Barnes, Mitch Hurst, Gary Jackson and Tracy, the Collins, and I could go on. I shouldn't have started naming people because I'm going to make somebody mad. But I want you to know that it mattered. That it matters. Right? And just like in the legacy of this church, the legacy of your family, which will propel the legacy of this church, matters. but we've got to say yes. Well, God's going to take care of the details later. Listen, you think I knew the details through year 4 back in at the end of 2021? No. Why? Because this dude would have said, no, you're crazy. There's no way. God, I don't know that you can do it. God, I know you can't do it through me. Right? But yet again, yes, 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 and yes. I'm going to ask you to stand.